Right, this one should prove to be pretty quick. So this is parts 5 and 6 of the 4th homework set. Now the first one here just starts with a statement that I want you to support or refute. Merchandisers should strive for 0 return rate. Right, so again, sounds like that would be a good world to live in if you could in fact have a 0 return rate. Now of course there's one way you could achieve that easily, and that would be don't take returns. But as a matter of goodwill for most companies, they take returns because why? Because it's good for business, right? To let customers know that if they buy something from you, they have the right to return it, so that, in other words, so that they're completely satisfied. Think of it in those terms. So again, you don't want anything back, but you have to consider the fact that it's impossible to strive for a 0 return rate because it's just not realistic. Again, optimal doesn't mean realistic. It's totally unrealistic. So what you should do is you should think of it in terms of what's our minimum probable return rate. In other words, it doesn't matter how great our sales staff is, how great our product is. What are we going to get back because simple human nature is at work there, right? So let's say you figure out that, yes, we're going to get back 0.5% of whatever our sell-through is in terms of dollar value. And that's it. So you set that as your base, like probable minimum return, and above that number, that's the amount you should try to mitigate, to minimize, because that's realistic. Because again, anything you can, in other words, anything above that number you're saying is due to something other than things we can't control, right? So in other words, above that is what we can control, so that's what we're going to choose to try and minimize. So the short answer is no, you should never do this. Again, follow the steps kind of like what I described there. So in other words, come up with what you believe is your minimum returns you're going to experience, period, nothing you do about it, and strive to mitigate above that amount. Right now for number 6, we're going to look at some information that deals with a year-end physical count of Gorgon Inc.'s $1.6 million in merchandise inventory. So this is some things that became to our attention here. So we had $15,000 that was spoiled due to rodent damage, $5,000 deemed obsolete with no discernible sales value, $2,000 is missing, presumed stolen, $1,500 is missing, records indicate it was sold but not booked due to sold due to a clerical error, and we have $7,000 worth of fad items which don't sell well but otherwise have no other constraints to their viability. So out of these 5 elements, which of those 4 should definitely be included in your shrinkage entry? And the answer is A through D. All of those are inarguably things that should be removed from your inventory. A, again, it's spoiled due to rodent damage, again, so we can count it, but we can't count on selling it, right? It's just junk. So obviously that should be written off because you have no viability there. Now the $5,000 that's obsolete with no sales value, same idea. We should just write that off as well. Missing, presumed stolen, it's not there to count, so you have to write that off. And then $1,500 missing, but again, it was probably due to an error, so that adds up to $23,500 that you would just flow through at cost of goods sold debit or inventory credit for $23,500. After you subtract that, you'll have what you believe is your correct inventory balance. Now, what do we do with this 7 though? Right, so we have some fad items that don't sell, but otherwise there's nothing else wrong with them. Now, the rule here is, again, it shouldn't be included in the write-off because it doesn't really fit the definition here, because it's not really totally non-viable. So what can we do instead of, again, the 2 extremes are leave it as is, 7,000, or write it off to nothing. We can actually pick something that's halfway between those, not in terms of dollar value, but in terms of just ideas, and that is, what we'll do is we'll write it down to something called net realizable value. In other words, we're going to write it down to what we believe is what we'll sell it for, less the expenses that we'll incur to sell that inventory. So let's say we believe we could dump these fad items for $2,000, but it would cost us $500 to move this stuff out the door. They'll write down the difference of $5,500. In other words, they'll just say 7,000 minus 1,500, because that's the net there. And they'll just write it down from $7,000 to just $1,500. Now the implication here is that if we sell it for $2,000 and it costs us $500 to sell it, that's other costs above cost of goods sold, and we write off the cost of goods sold at $1,500, what would be the impact on our net income? Be nothing. It would be a big zero. We'd have 2,000 minus 2,000 equals nothing. So that's the idea behind writing down the net realizable value, is we're just writing it down to some number that will have no impact on our future net income. And again, that wraps it up for parts 5 and 6. As I promised, a very short video as compared to the first one in the series. So look for the 7th and final installment of Homework 4 coming soon, or actually, it's probably already there. I'll see you there.